My name is Karam Alhamad. I am a Syrian political activist, former political detainee, and also an international development practitioner. My project that I was working on still is called Locally Informed Ethereum Applications for International Development and Humanitarian Aid, with a major focus on crisis countries. And I talk about Syria. Or the focus was a multifaceted approach towards trying to get ideas from civil society groups to implement them later on, or hopefully implement them with the help of some developers. But we took a cluster of, or several clusters of civil society groups, 132 organizations, and my team and I developed curriculum for workshops, divided, of course, these groups into different groups. There is humanitarian aid, there is education, there is the health sector, and so on. So we onboarded them basically onto blockchain, and then we engaged with sessions and conversations that are about the applications of blockchain within their own specific fields, but without giving them the solution. It's actually just engaging with them and waiting for them to say what are some of the ideas they think could be implemented then on this technology. So that's my project. The project is important for me because I'm part of this community of activists and civil society groups. In fact, my work with the civil society groups and as an activist in Syria have led to my detention by the Syrian government several times. Last time I stayed in jail for a year just because I was calling for freedom and democracy, and I was trying to go to demonstrations and take videos and photos of them, so being a journalist. And I think, so there is definitely a deep personal connection with this project. But also I think that as someone who worked a lot in international development, I've seen firsthand how there is a lot of funding. Let's say if we look just into the financial aspect of things, there is a lot of funding that is being lost because of the use of intermediaries, and a lot of intermediaries when implementing international development projects or even humanitarian aid ones. And my other professional type of goal was to try to see if there is a way where we can take away some of these intermediaries so we can maximize the amount of funding that goes to the ground. And third, I think I would say there is not so much, in the blockchain space or even in international development, not so many attempts to try to actually engage with the local communities when we try to propose ideas. So the idea was how can we actually engage with a community that knows nothing about this technology, onboard them onto it, and then hear from them what they want, rather than the usual case of oh, we're gonna approach this community or this civil society groups and tell them, look, this is an idea that you can work on. Hear the organizations themselves. So yeah, I was myself fascinated when I heard some of the discussions from the civil society groups and engaged with them, because in my head, there is the low-hanging fruit of using blockchain to receive funding and as a railway for financial transactions. It's easy, especially when you're living in a war zone, to try to think about it this way. You need finances, you need money to try to implement your projects and so on. So I was thinking this would be the main and only basically application of blockchain that these groups would be talking about. I was happily surprised that it was definitely one of them, but it was not the only one. We had extremely innovative ideas that I don't think I've heard of before these workshops. For example, some of the groups that are working in areas that have been impacted by airstrikes that did not differentiate between civilians or military groups, have talked about, for example, collecting biometrics, but also, and most importantly, DNA from some of these victims and save them and secure them on blockchain-based cloud server or cloud service, and basically make it open for other civil society groups to basically take this information and also use it for their documentation efforts. This thing would really solve an issue where me, myself, as someone who was arrested before, have faced, which is the idea of duplication of. I was, for example, asked to give my testimony for what happened to me in jail more than 37 times. If there was something that is more like a local coordination network amongst some of these civil society groups using blockchain technology, it would have been, I would not be traumatized again and again and again, I would say. So yeah, these are some of the projects that we received that are not remittance based, and I think I was really happy to start seeing that once you actually onboard someone onto something, listen to them, hear them, see what are some of the ideas that they would come up with, because your basic rights and your basic knowledge could be someone else's advanced or like breakthrough. And this was also like extremely transformational for me.